The reader will read the Ugenti number 1 floor amendment.
Ugenti Rita number 1 floor amendment. I move the following amendment to Senate Bill 1356, reference to principles, signed Michelle Ugenti Rita.
Thank you. Senator Ugenti Rita.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move that the Ugenti Rita number 1 floor amendment to the bill be adopted.
Thank you. Brief explanation.
Yep,
Or not.
Oh, no.
Or not.
Oh, no.
It could be briefer, it may not be, I don't know.
I gotcha. Yeah, I'd like to explain it, however. So what this does, my floor amendment number 1, what it removes is funds associated to light rail or for light rail. And I think that that's a reasonable amendment. Let me tell you why. Light rail is a municipal responsibility. Different cities have different opinions on whether they want light rail. I know in my city, Scottsdale and Fountain Hills, we reject light rail, but you have other cities, Phoenix and Tempe, that like to have it. So this should be a municipal expense. I think it's also kind of curious that we need to have regional tax dollars go to pay for something, again, that is municipal specific. And if this was so popular, I think you would see light rail, I think you'd see a lot more people riding light rail, but I don't know about you, but when I look at and see the light rail, nobody's on it. This isn't even popular, and so it has to be subsidized with this kind of tax. And this tax is being sold as a transportation tax for freeways and big arterial streets, and this is out of line with that. I also, look, here's the other thing. It maybe should be funded by ridership. Again, if it's so popular, you should be funding it with ridership, not something like this that cuts against the purpose of what the proponents say this tax is about. Additionally, we've seen a shift in how people go to work, have we not? Over the last 2 years, we've had a big shift to at-home work. A lot more people are working at home. So this, to me, light rail is honestly going to be archaic. It's really not even facilitating how people commute anymore. So we're going to now potentially, we probably are, I hope that we don't, but we probably are going to now tax people to pay for something that right now isn't very popular, and I suspect over the course of the next 25 years will become even less popular, because we've seen, like I said, a shift in how people spend their time, particularly working from home. So why would you need light rail if we are now working from home? So this isn't a good use of the money, and I'm not opposed to transportation funds. What I'm opposed to is spending it on things that are unnecessary. I would prefer this money be absorbed in the freeways and in our roads, in things of that nature. That makes a lot more sense, and I think we could all make a compelling argument that we all benefit. And remember, this is a Maricopa tax. Really, what you're gonna pay for is you're gonna pay for Phoenix. This bill is all about Phoenix, and this is the first example of it. Thank you.
The reader will read the Ugenti Rita number 2 floor amendment.
Ugenti Rita number 2 floor amendment. I move the following amendment to Senate Bill 1356, reference to principles, signed Michelle Ugenti Rita.
Senator Ugenti Rita.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move that the Ugenti Rita number 2 floor amendment to Senate Bill 1356 be adopted.
Thank you. Brief explanation.
Yes, this is also a very reasonable amendment. Members, this brand new transportation tax increase is being sold that it's simply an extension. And that's inaccurate in my view. The current Prop 400 is 20 years. This expands it to 25 years. My amendment brings it back to 20 years. That way, it's more similar to what voters are currently operating under. I again think this is very reasonable because the 20-year time frame is familiar to voters. I don't think it's necessary to increase another 5 years for, I think the only rationale is just more money Remember, the Biden administration just passed a huge transportation package. I believe that Arizona's getting roughly $5 billion. Remember, the cities have been the recipients of hundreds of millions of dollars in federal funds. Remember, the legislature has appropriated tens of millions of dollars to transportation. When you couple all of that together, I don't see the need to expand the tax over and beyond what voters are familiar with. This is not trying to gut the member from District 25's bill, okay? But honestly is trying to be a little bit more thoughtful. This right here, this is a $35 billion tax increase. $35 billion. This probably is the largest tax increase ever. So cutting it down, shaving off 5 years, keeping it in line with what we've done previously, I think is responsible. That's what my amendment does. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. The reader will read the Ugenti Rita number 3 floor amendment.
Ugenti Rita number 3 floor amendment. I move the following amendment to Senate Bill 1356, reference to printed bill, signed Michelle Ugenti Rita.
Senator Ugenti Rita.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move that the Ugenti Rita number 3 floor amendment to Senate Bill 1356 be adopted.
Brief explanation.
Yep. Okay. Honestly, this is actually another really good one, and because here's what's happening. What this bill or this amendment does is it addresses the ballot language. So when we vote on this bill, this 25-page bill of supposed we're doing the same thing, but really it's brand new. If you look on page 24, you'll see a description of the ballot measure, and that's important because this description is what the voters will read. This description is very flowery. This description is advocacy. This description leaves an impression that isn't accurate. This description also leaves out the actual tax. Think about that. We're going to put something on the ballot and ask the voters to vote for a description that doesn't say that it's a half-cent sales tax increase. What about transparency? What about informing the public? What about making them understand what it is they're voting on? Especially when you're talking about the magnitude and the scope of this brand new tax. And you want to know what it is, a brand new tax, because the fiscal note had to be revised. They can't even tell you what the revenue is going to be because it's based on a floating number, and we'll get to that. At a minimum, however, we owe it to the public to be clear. So what I did is I asked Ledge Counsel, can you draft the ballot language in a very nondescript, kind of plain way? And they did. And if you look at the amendment, you can read it. It lays out the purpose of the new tax in a more clear and non-advocacy style way, and of course then it includes the half cent so that the voters know that they are being asked to vote on a half cent, because it does matter, does it not? The percent of the tax? Why would you not put that in the ballot language? Why did they skip that? If this is so popular, members, if this is going to pass overwhelmingly, then simply say in the question that instead of saying, do you favor the continuation of a county transportation privilege sales tax for regional transportation purposes in Maricopa County, yes or no, put in that it will be, do you approve a half-cent sales tax increase for county transportation purposes? That's at least open, transparent, and now the voter has more information to decide if they want to support that or not. Again, this isn't about, gutting the bill. And in fact, I think it complements the bill. Because I think the sponsor from District 25 is very proud of the work that he's put in, and so have the other people that have participated, and that's wonderful. So this doesn't in all way cut against that. It just provides the public with the actual tax, so when they see it on the ballot, they know what they're voting for. That's what this amendment does. I would encourage members to support it. It really helps the bill and empowers voters to know what they'll be voting on, because remember, this is 25 years and billions and billions and billions of dollars. At least we can tell them that it's a half-cent sales tax instead of leaving that open-ended. And with that, thank you very much. I encourage members to support the Ugenti Rita number 3 floor amendment.
Thank you. We will go to the Ugenti Rita number 5 floor amendment now, as it is in conflict with number 2.
Ugenti Rita number 5 floor amendment. I move the following amendment to Senate Bill 1356, reference to bill, signed Michelle Ugenti Rita.
Senator Ugenti Rita.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. I move that the Ugenti Rita number 5 floor amendment be adopted to the bill.
Thank you. Explanation, please.
Fantastic. Okay, so this, I did want to move this because this is a big piece, and I do appreciate the sponsor from District 25 incorporating it in his amendment. But I wanted to take some time on it because I think it shows that this bill has a lot of flaws. And one of the flaws, and this is very important, when you look on page 20, okay, and you look at the new language, you'll see that this tax is based off of a rate, but the rate can change, and the rate can change all the way up to January 1st, 2026. That's important because that's the reason why JLBC cannot give you a fiscal note that tells you how much the tax increase will be, because they're uncertain, because the 0.5% is based off of a rate that in the bill can change at any time up to January 1st, 2026. To me, the reason I think that's a huge red flag, and the reason I'm really glad that we're changing it, and the reason I wanted to spend some time on it, is because to me, it left me with the impression that the proponents had a plan to try to increase the base TPT rate at some point after this passes, whether legislatively or honestly on the ballot. They could do it that way as well. We've seen TPT tax increases on the ballot. I think Governor Jan Brewer championed one. And that would have the effect of increasing this tax without you knowing it today. The other thing is, when I brought this to the attention of staff, it took me several phone calls to finally get them to concede that yes, you cannot say with certainty that this tax is going to create X amount of revenue, because again, it was based on a floating number. And that's not how it was pitched. That's why I want to spend some time on it. That's not how this has been touted and communicated to all of us. This has been sold as a simple extension of a tax that already exists. But this highlights that it's not that. Remember, if you look at the 2004 bill, okay, from 2004 House bill, it's the same formula, but the base rate in this bill is in the past. That means that rate will never change. This one was in the future, and that's a big deviation. So we do need to read the language. We do need to be careful, and I really appreciate the sponsor concurring and agreeing that it's better for the public, and I think is more in line with what I believe his intent was, to not have a fluctuating tax. So so we can at least now get an updated fiscal note, because now JLBC will know that the base rate cannot change in the future, and we can have some certainty, more certainty about what the tax will generate. I spent a lot of time finding that little nugget in there, and so I did want to spend some time on it with you today, and I thank the sponsor for amending it. I do think it makes the bill a little bit better. Thank you. So actually, Mr. Chair, because he isn't incorporating it in the number 2 PACE floor amendment, I'll withdraw this one. That way we don't have a conflict, and his will be adopted.
We are on to the Ugenti Rita number 4 floor amendment.
Ugenti Rita number 4 floor amendment. I move the following amendment to Senate Bill 1356, reference to printed bill, signed Michelle Ugenti Rita.
Senator Ugenti Rita.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. I move that the Ugenti Rita number 4 floor amendment be adopted.
Thank you.
Okay.
Please
Thank you.
proceed.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you, sir. Okay, so this again is trying to make the bill match the way it's being sold. And this is a formula that allows us to derive at the half cent. In order, in my opinion, and I think people would agree, I think JLBC agrees at least, but the formula needs to be more specific, because in the bill, the reference is section 42-5010 subsection A. And when we look at that, when we look at subsection A, there are multiple rates. There are multiple rates. You have rates that are 5%, and then you also have rates that are 5.5%. So in order for this to be as clean as possible, I have an amendment that says that it should be based off of 42-5010A, paragraph 1. That way, the formula is based off of the first rate at 5%, so that it is an accurate calculation. Currently, this is based off of multiple rates. Now, would it have a massive impact on the amount of revenue generated? I don't think it's a massive impact. But to be precise and to be completely accurate, I think we should adopt this, because again, all it does is more clearly define what the rate is based off of, instead of having it based off of multiple. My amendment, by simply adding paragraph 1, make sure it's only based off of one rate and not several rates that you will find under section A. So, members, I would encourage you to support Ugenti floor amendment number 4 in the name of accuracy and transparency. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
We will move to the Ugenti Rita number 6 floor amendment.
Ugenti Rita number 6 floor amendment. I move the following amendment to Senate Bill 1356, reference to printed bill, signed Michelle Ugenti Rita.
Senator Ugenti Rita.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move that the Ugenti Rita number 6 floor amendment to Senate Bill 1356 be adopted.
Please proceed.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Okay, this removes the emergency clause. We just had an emergency clause debacle. It ties our hands. We don't need it. This removes the emergency clause. Members, this tax doesn't expire until the end of 2025. It shouldn't even go on the ballot in this upcoming election in 2022. It's totally out of touch to go on the ballot right now. We don't need the emergency clause. We abuse emergency clauses all the time down here. It's not necessary. Allow it to be regularly adopted is fine. These are the kind of things that tie our hands. These are kind of things that create unintended consequences when we have to then overcome things that have now been passed with an emergency declaration. I don't know how, we saw a perfect example of that the other week. They have plenty of time with this tax. They don't need the emergency clause. This removes it.
The reader will read the Ugenti Rita number 7 floor amendment.
Ugenti Rita number 7 floor amendment. I move the following amendment to Senate Bill 1356, reference to Prince of Bill, signed Michelle Ugenti Rita.
Senator Ugenti Rita.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. I move that the Ugenti Rita number 7 floor amendment to the bill be adopted.
Please proceed.
Excellent, thank you so much. Okay, this one is one of my favorites. This is an important one, and I honestly, we really should think about adopting it. Okay, all this does, members, we are a majority Republicans caucus here. All this does is say and this allows the county board of supervisors to put this new tax on the ballot as opposed to require. This bill right now is the legislature putting a tax increase on the ballot. It tells the county they have to. There is no discretion. And I think it's very important, if we're Republicans running on fiscal conservatism and tax cuts, that we don't put a tax increase on the ballot today. Make the counties, at a minimum, take proactive action and have them vote to put or authorize, put the tax on the ballot. Today, as this bill stands, we are doing it. Conservative Republicans in this chamber are going to vote to put a $30 billion tax increase, mandate it go on the ballot in a time, again, and I think we can all agree, where we have soaring inflation, soaring gas prices, food costs are up, the whole middle part, all of middle America is priced out of the home market, whether it's to buy or rent. Rents are soaring, and we are going to mandate that we put a tax increase on the ballot with no discretion to the counties. How out of touch are we? Also, I've just got done telling you too, and I'm sure you're all independently aware about how much money the federal government is putting towards transportation. Is this necessary? Do we need to do this? I think this is so important, because when the public comes, and they will come, because they are not going to see a distinction. I know everybody wants to live in this gray area, that this is just extending something that already exists, but I think these amendments point out that we're not extending something that already exists. There's significant differences between the proposal right now and the current tax that we're under. And they're going to say, what are you talking about? I thought you ran on a low tax, cutting tax platform, and you voted that the counties had to put this on the ballot in the middle of Joe Biden's administration in our midterms? I just see this so out of step with the Republican philosophy and things that I know that I've campaigned on. Again, but this is a modest change. Instead of requiring it, which is what the bill does, this just now makes it permissive. It allows the county. I don't know that it's, personally, I wish we don't even do the tax, but at a minimum, we will protect ourselves from what you know voters are going to say. Why did you do this? Why did you put this on the ballot? Why did you require that this go on the ballot? And that's why I have this amendment today, and I would encourage you to support it. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
We are on to the Ugenti Rita number 8 floor amendment.
Ugenti Rita number 8 floor amendment. I move the following amendment to Senate Bill 1356, reference to Prince of Bill, signed Michelle Ugenti Rita.
Senator Ugenti Rita.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move that the Ugenti Rita number 8 floor amendment to Senate Bill 1356 be adopted.
Please proceed.
Thank you so much. So what this amendment does is, if you look at the bill, okay, the only thing, if the bill passes, right? Say the bill passes, the question goes to the ballot, and it fails. Say it fails, right? The only thing that is removed from this bill is the tax. The tax would not exist because it failed. So You could not collect it, right? You would not have approved the new transportation sales tax. But the rest of the bill would go into effect. My amendment says that if the tax fails on the ballot, the whole bill would be repealed. And I think that's important because I'm going to tell you what I think is going on. I don't think the proponents followed the current structure that was passed in 2004 regarding how you are supposed to come up with the plan. I think they have a plan that doesn't follow statute. I think they need to amend statute. That's why you have 25 pages. You wouldn't have 25 pages if this was simply extending a tax. You'd have a page and a half. But you have all of this new language in here, all of this new language. Why? And you have a lot of things that have been removed and erased. Why? And it will all go into effect once this bill passes, regardless if the actual tax passes. I think it's, again, more transparent and appropriate and fair if the bill fails or passes, depending on what the voters say in 2022. The way it's drafted is the question, the tax would go away if it failed, but the rest of the language would become law. And this is what I think happens. I think that then now retroactively codifies the changes to this current plan that they say has support from everybody, and I actually think it does have support from all the cities. I just don't think it follows the 2004 structure. And I think if it doesn't pass on the 2022 ballot, they'll come back in 2024, and you'll see then, all they'll do is they'll have a bill that's only a page and a half, asking the legislature to authorize that they put the half-cent sales tax back on the ballot for 2024. And it will leave the impression that, oh, that's simple. You know, they're not changing anything else because they're changing it all right now. And so this amendment makes everything conditional. If it passes, then all of this becomes law, that's fine. If it doesn't pass, not only does the tax not pass, but so do all of the other very, very significant changes in this bill. And remember, this is being sold as something that just furthers what already exists. How can you further what already exists and make all of these meaningful, massive, significant modifications? It doesn't make any sense. I tried to align my amendments today, and this one particular simply tries to align how this bill is being sold and what the bill says in its text. So this doesn't gut it, this doesn't take the voters' ability away to weigh in, but it does make the whole bill contingent on passing. And of course, again, if it doesn't pass, it would then go away, and they're then free to come back to the legislature, but they wouldn't just come back with the tax question, they'd have to come back with any other changes they would want. I think that's fair and appropriate and in line with how this is being sold. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I encourage you to support the number 8 floor amendment to the bill.